Okay, we're going to start the meeting. Let me just make sure everyone's in. Hello, David. Hello, Frank. Hello, Stephanie. Okay, hello to everyone. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes.
Good.
Tripods for the iPad.
Yes, I know, that's the problem.
I want a glass of wine. Go get one. Everyone, charge your glasses and be upstanding.
Can you deliver some of that alcohol to number 65 Springfield, please? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. I wish you all a big l'chaim wherever you are. I wish you all well. I wish you all a beautiful, beautiful Pesach. It should be a special one for everyone. I thought it would be nice with just 48 hours to go till Pesach to reflect a little bit about the Haggadah Seder night. Get in the mood, get in the zone. I know a lot of you are going to be doing Seder by yourself. Some of you are going to be doing it with one person, two people, very much smaller Sedorim than what we're used to. We personally are used to big Sedorim with all the family. Last year I led a Seder for 40, 50 people, and 2 years ago as well. And this year it's just going to be me and Dina and the kids. It's going to be a very different style Seder. And I want to suggest some ideas and some ways to make it special. And I brought with me here this evening a few of my favorite Haggadahs to show you. It's important to have a great Haggadah. A Haggadah is so much more than just a prayer book. It's not like a prayer book where you're in the service, you just follow through the Hebrew, the English. It should have lots of meaning, lots of commentaries, and there are some amazing, amazing Haggadahs out there. And if you want to speak to me privately afterwards, I'll suggest a few. There's even 2 or 3 Jewish bookshops who are delivering during this coronavirus pandemic. They will deliver to your front door. If you don't have one, we can help you get one. So the first thing to say is have a great Haggadah, because that will obviously assist you. Okay, so what the structure of this share this evening is as follows. I'm beginning with just really a few important tips for Seder night, a few tips on how to make sure your Seder night is meaningful. And then I'm going to share with you some Divrei Torah on the Haggadah. So tip number 1, and if you want to make any notes, you're welcome to. Tip number 1 is prepare. For those people who just show up to Seder night and they go straight into it, as if they're just showing up to a Friday night dinner. And actually, Seder night is much, much more than a Friday night dinner. And it's really, really important to prepare ahead of time. There are various ways and ideas and suggestions on how you can prepare for Seder night ahead of time. And I'm going to share with you just a few of my favorite ideas, some of the things that we do. First of all, get the kids involved. If you have kids, get them really involved with laying the table, with making it exciting. I know one year we got the kids to hang up these paper chains all the way across the room. And what these paper chains represented, they were like human figurines, and they represented all the generations from the Exodus to now. It's only 100-odd generations. And this idea that we are tapping in to something that my grandparents were doing, my great-grandparents were doing, going back for many, many years. And this idea, it's a really, really powerful one, because the kids can relate to that. It's very, very visual. But in terms of preparing visual aids, there are all sorts of visual aids you can do, whether it could be cut out paper frogs that you make, or if you have teddy bear soft toys for the wild animals, or ping pong balls for the hailstones, or dark sunglasses for the kids to put on for the makat of choshech, of darkness. Be creative, and it's not just for the kids, it's for the adults as well. Get everyone involved. Experiential education, that's what Seder night is about. Also, prizes for the kids. Now, obviously, it might be hard to get out to a shop to buy prizes, but a point system, whenever a kid asks a good question, whenever an adult asks a good question, ways to get people involved, to stimulate them, to make it powerful. It will keep the kids busy, it will keep them focused. And, if they sometimes get sidetracked, it's a lovely way to get them involved again. One year we had a mystery box. When the kids got a little bit tired, they could go and look at the mystery box. And in the mystery box, we had Egyptian masks, and we had other interesting things. And we said, go and explore ancient Egypt. And just ways to get children involved, excited, and focused for Seder night. Another really important idea of Seder night, and this is really important even if you were doing Seder by yourself, Seder night, we are supposed to be like royalty. We have pillows on our chair. We lean like kings and queens. We don't pour for ourselves. You're supposed to have somebody else pour for you if that's possible at all. But you should try and dress up for the occasion. Wear your best dinner outfit. If you have a gown or a lovely dress, it's not a bad idea to wear that for Seder night, because it really is powerful. It gets the kids excited. People see that say, kids, we're going out tonight for a function. No, we're not leaving the house, but we're going to be dressing like kings and queens for Seder night, and it's a real way to get everyone excited, in the mood. Dress up for the occasion. It sets an atmosphere. Read the Haggadah in a language that speaks to you. Obviously, we read it in Hebrew and some parts of Aramaic, but if you could only understand English, read it in English. Get people round the table to present different parts of the Seder. If it's obviously just by yourself, you can't do that, but if you've got one or two other people, give everyone turns to be involved, to be present in the moment. And you know what? It's sometimes okay to stop the Seder and go off on a little tangent. If one of the participants asks a really good question, that's fine. For example, one of the kids might say, the Haggadah is telling us about slavery. Are we slaves today? What does slavery mean? Definition of freedom. About freedom in 2020, civil liberties. We're all in a lockdown. Get into a discussion with those people. The idea is Seder night should be engaging to everyone around the table. It shouldn't be dreary, old, boring. You should get involved. Obviously, there are mitzvot, there are obligations you have to do on the night, eating the matzah, the 4 cups of wine, telling the story, but you can be creative in your way, getting people excited, getting them involved, and that's really, really important. And if you want, to go on some tangents of discussions, that's absolutely fine. There's no reason why you can't go off on a tangent, on a discussion. People love it, kids love it, and adults love it as well. It's just a way to get everyone excited and everyone involved. I'm going to just put on the group chat here just 3 or 4 discussion questions that you might want to think about during your Seder. We won't have time to go through all of them now, but just something you might want to think about during your Seder night, and really get everyone to participate. Seder night is almost like an amazing lesson. It's a way to get everyone involved. Okay, let me just share with you a couple more tips for your Seder before I go on to the Divrei Torah. Okay. One thing I recommend, just practically, earlier on in the late afternoon, have something to eat, a light meal, because if you're only going to be making Kiddush after 8:36, which by the way is the earliest halachic time to make Kiddush, and you're only going to be going through Magid and all the parts of the Seder, you won't get to eat till 9:30, 10 o'clock at the earliest, really. So I recommend a bowl of soup, something. Obviously, you can't eat any bread after midday. You can't eat matzah before Seder night. So it could just be some soup. I know my mother always used to make us meatballs and mashed potatoes for Seder, Erev Seder, for lunchtime, to keep us going, to make sure that we were not starving hungry. Otherwise, if the kids are starving, they're not going to be wanting to interact during the Seder. And get everyone involved, as I said before. A perfect example is the 4 sons. Each person around the table could explore or prepare something to say for that idea. You could do just anything creative to get people involved for your Seder. I'm going to pause at this point, and you can all unmute yourself. And if anyone would like to ask a question or make a suggestion or recommendation or share something that you do at your Seder table, please unmute yourself and speak now. Go for it. Anyone like to share anything with us?
Hello, Rabbi. Gary.
Hello, Gary.
I can't seem to get a camera going on this thing.
No, me neither.
Anyway, my big tip for the Seder: make sure your whole family is singing from the same Haggadah. Otherwise, the only question which is asked is, what page are we on?
Yeah.
And the question is, and what time's dinner?
My greetings.
Absolutely.
So, Gary, can I ask our group what Haggadah we actually use? I'm interested to know what people recommend.
I can't see anybody either, Yoni. It's difficult.
I'm just looking at settings to see how I can let you all see each other. I don't know why it's not allowing you to see each other.
I can't see. I've got no camera at all. Just my name has appeared on the screen.
Yes, us too. The Colemans.
I apologise for this. Let me just have a quick look at settings.
The Colemans must be becoming very learned. They're on every shir I've been on.
Yeah, we are.
Hello, Rabbi Malcolm.
Yeah. Okay.
Michael, where were you on the lunchtime class with Diane Binstock today?
I was really upset I missed it. I had a long phone call. I thoroughly enjoyed yesterday's, but I had a phone call that overran.
Okay.
Will you tell me about it later, Gary? I missed it.
It's a similar, Asay lecha Rav, get yourself a rabbi.
Yeah, you're right.
Gary, we're very impressed with your knowledge as well.
Oh, I wouldn't be.
Yeah, you've got to choose your teacher very carefully.
Yes.
So we're not sure about the teacher tonight. That's Rabbi Yoni.
What was the Gary, in a nutshell, whilst we're announced, what was the message today?
Well, the message was Asay lecha Rav, find yourself a teacher. You must stick to the teacher. You can't shop around for rabbis to get the answer you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the example, if a rabbi says this chicken isn't kosher, don't try finding a rabbi who says, well, this chicken may be kosher.
Yeah, right. But what about, he normally sort of links it to sort of everyday life situation. Like yesterday, were you there yesterday?
No, I missed yesterday.
Yesterday, I thought was really interesting. He said it was talking about your public. A rabbi told him when he got married to his Shevabrokers that your face is public. Your face is public, but what goes on behind your face is private, and therefore your face, as it's public, should always be friendly and smiley and polite, etc., etc. It was very nice to sort of bring it to that point.
Rabbi Yoni will confirm one of the Pirkei Avot is greet everyone with a smile.
Yeah, that was yesterday. Was
that the actual one you did? That's number 15 in that case of first chapter.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what was today? What was his sort of modern message today, if you can remember? What's the one?
To you.
Sorry?
Let the Colemans answer.
Rabbi, yes, I think he was saying you've got to be very careful who you take for your teacher, and if you're going to ask questions, make sure the person that you are to whom you're addressing the question is someone who understands you, because the Dayan was saying that sometimes when he asked a question, he needs to know the background of the individual because his answer would change.
The analogy you gave, Michael, was this: it's like going to a doctor who knows your medical background.
Exactly.
Right.
Two with a rabbi.
Right. Can we get back to Rabbi Yoni?
Right.
And you can answer your shilas accordingly.
Can we get back to the shir,
Sorry,
please?
Yoni, don't want to hijack yours.
Here you are.
It's absolutely fine.
You don't need Yoni.
Gary, I might not be able to figure out the camera, but I can figure out muting you, so don't worry.
I can figure out.
I sincerely apologize. I have absolutely no idea why we cannot see all of you.
Maybe because it's FaceTime.
No,
and,
it was
Who else is on the call apart from Colemans and Coles?
Coleman's and Coles.
I'll tell you who's on the call. We've got a lot of people on the call. We've got about 30 people on Facebook, but on here, Charlotte Switzerland, Jordan, Malcolm, Peter, Gillis, Stella Lucas is on the line with us, everybody. 103 years old, at 9:15 at night, she is learning Torah with us. She is amazing.
Wow.
She's got
David
more
Green,
energy than all of us put together.
Okay, let's get back to what we were saying, ladies and gentlemen, before everyone loses interest. Those were some top for Seder night. Now, some Torah, some heavier stuff, some really beautiful Divrei Torah. We'll see how much time we have for you. So Gary was asking me a great question. Now I'm going to ask you a great question. There are two types of words in the Torah to describe work. Can you think what those words might be?
Avoda.
Avoda is certainly one of them, correct? Avoda, what's the other word? So the other word is melacha.
Oh, yes.
And the question is, what is the difference between avoda and melacha? So this is an interesting question, and I'll share with you a fascinating answer. So imagine the following scenario. It's 15 minutes before Shabbat, and as the rabbi often does, I get an emergency phone call. Please, we've got two guys out of town, secular Jews, but they want to spend Shabbat here in St. John's Wood. Can they stay at you? Can you host them? Do you have room for them? And we, of course, say with the greatest of pleasure. They come in. I'm literally about to go out to Mincha. Shabbat is about to start in several minutes' time. They dump their stuff. We go to shul. We come home. We have a beautiful evening and a lovely Friday night dinner. And at the end of the dinner, one second, sorry, Philip, can we hear you now? Sorry.
Hello.
Hi, Philip. Sorry, I don't know what's going on tonight with my Zoom. I apologize. Welcome to you. So at the end of your Friday night dinner, your two guests want to go up to bed, and it's very late at night, and they're very tired. And your Zed's bed is in the basement, and they're sleeping in the loft. and you say, sure, would you mind giving me a hand preparing your bed? And you go down to the basement, you schlep up 2 Zeds beds from the lower ground floor all the way through, up 4 flights of stairs. You put it in the loft, you set up their beds, schlepping, putting up mattresses, sheets, etc., etc. And then just before the end, you say goodnight, have a lovely rest, thanks for joining us. Before you say goodnight to them, one of them says, can you just turn the light switch off? And that one, you turn them and you say, well, actually, no, you're not allowed to do that on Shabbat. And why not? Because it's considered work. And they laugh at you. They say, what do you mean it's considered work? You've just spent the last 20 minutes schlepping up beds from the basement to the loft. Why is one okay and one is not okay? It's a great question, right? What would you answer them? What would you answer them, Philip?
One is involved within Beit HaMidrash and one isn't.
Beit HaMatras, right?
Yeah.
Beit HaMatras.
Anyone know what the difference is? What's the halachic difference? Why one is okay, one is not okay?
Well, I would say you can't do
It is in the Talmud. It's in the
lachot.
Talmud, isn't it? It's in the Talmud that you
Correct, Imre. Yeah, the Talmud does talk about it.
Talmud that
Yeah, because
you don't
you're
like the
working
week
and somebody
of
else
the
is
lamb.
benefiting.
you don't turn the wick of the lamp to the sideways in case it lights or something like that.
But the answer actually is as follows. And thank you very much for your contributions. The answer is actually very straightforward, that really the Talmud, as you say, Imre, describes 39 categories of malacha, of work, that you're not allowed to do on Shabbat, whereas avodah is slightly different. And I'll explain to you a very big differentiation between the two. Malacha is considered creative work. Malacha is considered the work that you do which creates something. All those 39 things that were done in the construction of the temple, whether it was setting up a fire or making or sewing, whatever it was a creative, positive, useful action. And that was almost like a microcosm of the universe when Hashem created the world, and therefore on Shabbat we don't do those actions. Whereas avodah is work that's not necessarily useful and it's not necessarily productive. And that's avodat porech. We describe tomorrow night when we'll read our Haggadah, we'll talk about avodat porech. What's avodat porech? Avodat porech is meaningless work. Avodat porech is the work that we use to describe what the Egyptians were doing on that very first Seder night.
The dye doesn't move around.
Right? On that very first, on that time when they were slaves in Egypt, what were the Egyptians doing to the Jewish people? They made them do incredibly meaningless, futile work. The work that they had to do was considered so futile and so meaningless that many of the Jewish people just, they wanted to give up because they found it so hard. You'll remember that scene in The Pianist. I don't know if anyone's seen the film The Pianist, right? The Pianist is an amazing film about the Holocaust, and it describes a story of this pianist who was so incredible at playing the piano. And at one point in the ghetto, he's pushed over by a Nazi, he falls over into the mud, and you see these fingers that are delicate, amazing piano fingers are covered now in mud because he's being forced to do work that's not suitable for him. And the Medrash says that in the times of Egypt, what was the avodah? That the Egyptians would make the Jews build pyramids on quicksand. They would make them, the Medrash says that men did the women's work, women did the men's work. What did that mean? It means it just was work that wasn't suitable for them, and it was psychologically painful. You know, the story is told of the guy working in slavery in Siberia, and he's working, in the most difficult of conditions, the most unpleasant conditions, and he has to turn this grind around against the wall, this bell, all day long. And after several months, his torturer, the guard, shows him the other side of the wall, and all he was doing was turning around a circle all day of absolute meaningless work. And how tragic that was, that really that kind of demoralization is what destroyed him. And really, this is what we're saying when we talk about on Seder night, we'll talk about the avodas porech.
Yes.
The difference between malacha and avodah. And what's interesting, the Gemara actually says something fascinating. There's a gematria system. Is everyone familiar with what a gematria is? Yeah,
Of course, yes.
so there's a gematria system called atbash. Atbash basically means if you take each letter of the aleph base and you would match it up with the last letter of the aleph base. So for example, aleph would be matched up with toph. So aleph is 1, toph is 400. Matched up with the second last letter of the aleph base with shin, which is 300. That would be 700. So the atbash gematria of av alphabet is 700. If you take the word porech, this word of meaningless work, futile work, what is the atbash gematria? Well, pei is the 6th last letter of the alphabet. It corresponds to vov, which is the 6th first letter of the alphabet. Reish corresponds to gimel, and chof represents lamed. Gimel, chof, lamed, 6, 3, and 30 is 39. In fact, the idea is the total antithesis of avodas porech was what? Was malacha, was useful work. And therefore, that's what Tosfos in Pesachim actually says. On Seder night, the message really is, the take-home message to share with everyone, is tonight we need to try and make sure we're involved in meaningful, useful work. I want to share with you one last idea.
Does that mean, Yoni,
Sure,
does that
go
mean
on.
I can tell my wife when she wants me to do the hoovering, because we haven't got any cleaner at the moment, that I can say this is meaningless, futile work for me, it's not suitable?
Let me know how that goes.
Not
Let me
on
know-
Shabbat.
Let me know how that goes with Tina. I'll be very interested.
You're supposed to be-
definitely not.
Michael, she
You're-
won't let you go to the office.
You're as a rabbi, you're supposed to be, promoting sort of, enhancements to one's marriage and all of that. And happy
Shalom
families.
Bayit.
Sorry?
Shalom Bayit, Michael.
Yeah, shalom bayit. Yeah.
What does that mean?
I
Shalom.
have no doubt,
Shalom,
I have
peace
no
in the
doubt,
house.
Michael Cole, you are very hands-on and you do tremendous amount of help at home. I must say, over the last 3 weeks, I've had an education. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I think it's very important, particularly this time. Right now, everyone's home life and home dynamic is so stressful, so different to usual, and it's
Yeah.
it's an adapting game. But everyone should help as much as they absolutely can, and then it will not be futile. It will be very, very useful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you smash a few things, you aren't asked to do anything more.
That's what happens here, Yoni.
No, I find if I protest, every lemon and apple and orange and banana that came had to be washed before it was allowed in the house. And I said, and that was my job. But I protested so much, I was let off the hook.
Brilliant.
Rabbi Yoni, does hoovering come in the category of avoda or malacha?
Gary, you must have been a nightmare in school.
Not just at school.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. Moving on, I want to share with you another beautiful Dvar Torah, beautiful idea about Seder night. The Gemara says, it's a Gemara in Tanis, that if a student is struggling, then what's the problem? The problem is because his learning is disorganized. Part of the secret to success in life is being an organized person. I'm doing this interview series. This morning I interviewed Tony Page. You'll be hearing this interview tomorrow morning on our WhatsApp broadcast. It was a fabulous interview, very interesting. And at 9:30 this morning, when I'd arranged to interview him, he was sitting at his desk in his office, dressed in a suit with his tie done up, looking very pucker. And then I saw him come on the screen. I started to laugh. I said, Tony, you're self-isolating at home. Why are you dressed in a suit with a tie jacket? And he goes, no, if you want to be successful, you've got to make sure you're organized and you've got to put your right foot forward. And it was a powerful lesson. But why am I sharing this with you? Because Seder night, what does the word Seder mean?
Order.
Seder means order. And one of the most important things of Seder night is making sure you are absolutely organized. And it's the whole idea. We begin the Seder. What's the very first ritual that we do at the beginning of Seder night?
Rachatz.
Bracha.
Even before that.
Wash
Before
hands.
Kiddush, before you make Kiddush. In
Light
my
the
house,
candles.
well, the candles you make sure you light before Yom Tov begins, which is about 7:25 tomorrow, absolutely. But I'll show you that in my house,
Seder plate.
in
Prepare
my
the
house,
Seder plate.
you make sure the Seder plate's on your table. But does anyone have the custom to sing the song Kadesh Urchatz Karpas Yachatz, to sing the order of the Seder?
No.
Yeah,
No.
yeah,
So Philip, you do it in your house, right?
yeah.
Why do we sing the order?
To establish the order.
To establish what you're about to do. Now, if you think about it, on a regular Friday night, we don't do this. You don't stand up before anything begins and say, okay, guys, Shalom Aleichem, Eishes Chayil, we're going to make Kiddush, then we'll have chicken soup. You don't do that on a regular Friday night. Why on Seder night, before anything begins, you begin with singing the order of what you're about to do? What's the message? What's the idea? What is this all about? And I want to share with you a beautiful answer. Because the key to a successful Seder experience is structure and it's planning. And you'll notice nothing in Judaism is by coincidence. How many steps are there in the Seder? There are 15 steps, right? Yeah? What does the number 15 represent in Judaism? I'm opening this up to you guys.
Number of steps leading to the altar in the temple.
Excellent.
Dayenu, psalms that begin Shir Hamalot out of the 150.
Can we have a round of applause for Gary Phillips?
Well done.
Very,
Gary.
very good.
That's
I
impressive.
texted him.
He asked a friend.
The number 15 represents a spiritual journey. And there were 15 steps, as Gary said, in the temple to get to the Holy of Holies. Think 15 songs of praise that the Levium used to write. There's 15 generations for Abraham to King Solomon, right? What's so special about King Solomon? King Solomon...
Abraham, King Solomon's 15 generations.
Abraham Solomon, 15 generations. What's so special about those 15 generations, right? What's the idea? Solomon, what does Solomon represent? Solomon, he was kind of like the utopia period of Jewish history, where the temple was existing, when we had this divine connection with the Almighty. There was something very, very special about that period, and therefore, what's the idea of Seder night? The idea of Seder night is we are trying to go on a journey to holiness. What is the message of Seder night? The essence of Seder night is belief in God, connection with God, and tapping in your relationship with God. And that's the story of Seder night. And that's what we see through various points in the evening. The main focus is number one. What do I mean number one? Where do you see in Seder night the number one? Gary, this is getting a bit harder. Let's see if you can still...
Echad mi yodea.
Okay, so there's the famous song Echad mi yodea, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
Where in Seder is the number one?
Yes, this is hard. This is hard. You'd have had to have completed Talmud, Gary, to know this.
Yeah, well, you mean remember. Echad in the Seder. Sorry, I can't do that for you. I don't know.
So I'll tell you something interesting. What do you say, Imre?
There's only one God.
There's only one God, but actually there was a lot of rules. The most important thing about Seder night in biblical times was the Korban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb offering. That's what Seder night was about. And there were loads of laws around this offering. The Maharal of Prague says something fascinating. So when you look at any mitzvah in the Torah, it represents the philosophy of what that mitzvah is trying to teach you. And the Korban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb offering, it had to be how old?
Young.
Yeah.
It had to be 1 year old, no more than 1 year old. It had to be one animal in a house. It had to be eaten all in one house, and it could have no broken bones. Everything about it is screaming oneness and completedness, right? Also, it had to be roasted, because if it would cook, it would become soggy and it would all fall apart. It had to be roasted. The korbanot, right? The offerings represent the person bringing it. And the whole idea of the Korban Pesach is this idea of oneness of the Almighty, Shema Yisrael, right? That's the oneness of the Almighty. And therefore, the main focus of Seder night is to have an order and to try and go through those 15 steps of holiness. And that's why when we read in the Seder night the story of Rabbi Eliezer, in Bnei Brak, remember that story?
Yeah.
What's the message of that story? They realized suddenly it's time for Kriyat Shema Shal Shachris. They got panicked. It's sunrise. It's time to pray. So the question is, for those of you who've just recently learned Gemara Brachot, you'll be able to answer this as well. How many hours of the day can you say Shema for in the morning? The morning Shema. Up to the third hour. For 3 hours in the morning. Right? So why did these students of Rabbi, why did they need to disturb the rabbi, say it's time to say Shema? That time period had just started. What was the message? The message is that this is the root of Seder itself, the idea of connecting with God. They were so excited that they now had the opportunity to say Shema. That is what was keeping them going. I'll conclude with one idea, one final idea with what I began with. I began with the idea, make sure your Seder is enjoyable for the participants. Make sure it's like the best, pedagogical experience, educational experience your children can have. And that's why at the end of the Seder night, Rabbi Avram Gurovitz, the Gated Rosh Yeshiva, said this idea. We sing a song that Philip referred to a few moments ago called Echad Miyodea, right? Who knows one? I know one. One is Hashem, one is Hashem, one is Hashem. Yeah, we won't sing the whole song, don't worry. But what's the whole idea of this song, and why do we do this at the end of the Seder? So I want to share with you a beautiful idea. Those of you involved in education, right? Gary, you'll know this as the chairman of LSJS. The best successful assessment of any educational program is a test that happens at the end. You want to see if the children or the students have absorbed the knowledge. So at the end of the Seder night, we want to see if you've internalized this message. There's a great game called the word association game. If I say knife, you say?
Fork.
Fork. Or if you're strange and a bit worrying, you'll say axe murderer, right? Or if I say apple, you'll say?
Orange.
Orange. Or if you're under the age of 15, you'll probably say iPod, right? Apple, iPod, right? The word association game is you say a word that is associated with the word that you've just said. And, right, gold, silver, black, white, etc., etc. At the end of Seder night, we want to see, have the participants tapped in to the spiritual journey they've been on. If they have, then they'll say one is Hashem. They'll say two is the Luchot, three are the mothers, four are the fathers, right? Five of the books of Moses. In other words, their whole psyche is focused and being able to get involved with spirituality. And that's the idea. That's the idea of Seder night. That's the idea of what we're trying to tap into. I want to thank you all for joining. I'm going to ask you to
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or comments before we end?
Thank you, Yoni.
Thank you, Yoni. That was very interesting. Thank you very much.
That
Really
Rabbi
enjoyed
Eliyahu paragraph you referred to, Yoni, the great Rabbi Irvin, Dr. Jacob, taught me that these rabbis are in a cave waiting for Bar Kokhba to reveal himself as the Messiah. That's why they've removed themselves from their wives. They should be having sex with their families. They're not. And they're waiting in the morning when Bar Kokhba would appoint himself as Mashiach. You ever heard that? This is in the time of the Romans, so the timing is right.
Interesting.
Which explains what that paragraph is doing in the Seder.
Interesting. Interesting. That's a beautiful idea. I wanted to say it was so nice of you all to join. I really enjoyed speaking to you. I'm sorry you couldn't see each other. I don't know what that technical reason was.
We weren't asked to join with a video, that's right.
It would have been nice to see all of you, but I wish you the most beautiful Pesach. If you have any questions, let me know. I can see there was one question somebody asked, Charlotte asked, if you are doing Seder alone, who finds the Afikomen? That's a great question. Now, there's no real reason to, there's no real reason to actually find the Afikomen other than get the kids excited and involved. That's why we do it. You want to get everyone excited. It's an educational tool. But really, the mitzvah is to eat the afikomen. Obviously, if you want to play hide and seek by yourself, go ahead. There's no reason why you can't, but it's a bit strange. But it's an educational tool. So there's no requirement. There's no requirement. If you can't find it, you're in more trouble.
How are we going to social distance from Elijah when we can't see him?
The bigger question is, how's he going to be allowed into your house? Why is he not quarantining for 14 days?
Exactly.
The house. Listen, please God, we should merit to see Elijah soon in good health. Everybody should be healthy and well, and our Prime Minister should be well.
Right.
All of you a wonderful.
He's in ICU at the moment. He's in intensive care.
We pray that he heals and a full recovery. We need him. But God bless you all, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Yoni, thanks very much.
Thank you, Yoni.
Thanks. Bye.
That was really good. Good night.
Thank
you. Night.